today I'm here. Yes, the meeting has been recorded. I thought it was already a question, you know. I'm here with Dr. Elias Barreto. He's a psychologist from Lisbon. And we both are part of this organization, a European organization whose name is SMES Europa. SMES Europa is a community of professionals. We all work, let's say, on a first line at the intersection between mental health and social exclusion. And today, this is the first webinar that we are proposing to our host. But aside the webinar, we hope that this could become a space for all of you of confrontation, reflection, challenges. And this is what SMES Europa represented for all of us. I think I can say this, for all of us members of SMES Europa, because it's a place in which, from different nations, we can meet and feel that we have been nurtured after our meetings, and that we bring something new to our daily work, where we face this situation of high complexity, you know, and difficulties. So for us, let's say, SMES Europa represents also a tool anti-burnout. We will see that there is a need for these tools, and I would like, and I hope that after this meeting, we may say that we enlarged our organization, our community, and that we became richer thanks to your contribute. So thank you for being here. And I have the chance to introduce Dr. Luigi Leonori. He's the founder and the president of SMES Europa, and we will see soon. Thank you, Luigi.
I have a difficulty to speaking so well English like you speaking. Sorry, my English is very, very small. But welcome, everybody. And probably each of us know what means this word about what we working today, trauma. Who don't have the one small big trauma in their life until today. If I don't mistake, Otto Fenkel told each of us have one, what is it, tallone di Achille, tallone insomma, il of Achille. So means each of us have this kind of experiences, traumatic situation. But different is a capacity answer. Different is people who is around us, support us when stay in this situation. But we are working about all of this in this presentation of our colleague. Yes. And I would only remember one thing. Perhaps is one coincidence, but this year is this month is a month where people underline the question of the suffering of the people. The first October is the day of elder people, and many times elder people have a very, very biggest problem, health, mental health, and the poverty. The second day is 10 October, is what we try to celebrate, but also we would like to make attention, is people with mental illness problem. And what is very important is the dignity of these people, is answer and give, listen and answer to these people. And the third day, every time in the same month, is International Against the Poverty. And also about this one is a very, very biggest situation, terrible situation in our not only country, but in our Europa and also in the world situation. So we have so much to work together, but only together is possible to arrive to make what alone was not so easy to make. So we try to working about this in this first webinar after Erasmus project, and we try to have next time also different kind of meeting for deepest reflection concerning this topic, poverty, dignity, and well-being. Good job we have to do.
Thank you, Luigi. I give the floor to Elias that will introduce this webinar.
So may I ask Luca to share the presentation on the screen? So I would also like to start by thanking everyone present, everyone who showed an interest on this subject that we bring here today. I would like to thank Luigi, Leonori, and SMES, because it has been, like Silvia said, a learning community, a community of people where I learned a lot. So I would like to thank deeply Luigi, Leonori, and SMES for making this possible, and also thank him and SMES for this webinar, which we hope is the first of a series of webinars. I would also like to thank Jacopo for all his help in organizing this webinar, which I believe it was a lot of work. I would also like to thank Luca for his help today. And I would like to give a special thanks to Silvia, because I really think that she put a lot of effort and determination in putting together this webinar. So thank you very much, Silvia.
You're welcome. To me, it's a huge problem that I created with my hands, but it's not the first time in my life.
So may I ask Luca for the next slide? So I would like to start as a way of introduction to say that over the years, I'm not old, but I get more mature, I hope. And over the years, I've come to appreciate more the ability to ask questions, more than the ability to provide answers. Because questions open our thinking and invite us to think further. Whereas when we think we know the answer, in a way, it seems like we will stop thinking then. So I bring here 4 questions for us to start. And if you look at the first one, is to be homeless. To be homeless is to be houseless. If you look at it, if you turn that into an affirmation, and you just say, well, to be homeless is the lack of housing. If this is an affirmation, in a way, it closes the subject. It seems that there is nothing else to think about. It seems like we've identified the cause and the solution for homelessness. But if we turn this into a question, in a way, it opens to other possibilities. We all know that housing is a very important part with the work with homeless. But if you make it a question instead of just an affirmation, then you were invited to think further. Maybe there are other aspects that we should be aware of when we think on homeless. Now, I do believe that those of you that have been working with homeless for some time probably have met people, homeless people, who were fortunate enough to have been offered some housing solutions, some good housing solutions, but still some of them seem to have a hard time settling down in those housing solutions. I've met people who have had the opportunity to be in several houses, not shelters, houses, but still it's a difficult process. Some of them in the beginning seem happy, but after some time they maybe will start to complain about the house or about the neighbors or about the neighborhood, or they will complain that the house that was given to a colleague is better than the one he got. And after some time, this person may get out of the house and go back to the street. Now, and this can be repeated over and over. I've seen this happen. Now, again, if you can close the subject by an affirmation, and you can say that, well, some people just like to live on the streets. They preferred the life on streets. Well, and some people do think that. But if you turn this into a question, why some people have difficulty in settling down in a house, then the question invites us to keep thinking. And it's an interesting question for me. Also, I believe it's an interesting question to ask, what is a home? Sometimes we take for granted that we know what is a home. We think it's an obvious thing, but perhaps it's not so obvious to think what is a home. The same thing, I think, is a nice and interesting question to ask, what is to feel at home? Is it an automatic process? What does it take for one to feel at home? So I would like to start with this position that in homelessness, we should be ready to ask questions and not illusion ourselves that we already know the answers. Now, can I ask Luca for the next slide? Sorry? I said before that I've become more appreciative of questions, and I've become more appreciative of wild thoughts that seem strange, that go out of the usual, out of the obvious. And one of such wild thoughts is the one that I came across just by accident, a quote from this man, Marc Olivier, which was presented as an architect and also a psychologist. And according to this man, the earliest houses of humanity followed the female form. Well, that is intriguing. And he said that he realized this when he was studying the traditional houses of Africa, those small huts in the African tribes that we've all seen pictures of. And then he said that when he was studying the houses, he realized that when we look at those houses from a certain angle, they look like breasts pointing up to the sky. And when you look at the entrance, they look like lips that open to one inside. And when you get inside, he said that it became evident to him that those houses followed the model of the mother's womb, the mother's uterus. Now, that's certainly a wild thought. Some of you may be inclined to reject it right away as nonsense. But if you stop to think about it, actually, literally, the mother's womb was our first home, indeed. So maybe it's not so far-fetched to think that in our search for a home, we try to recreate a space that has some features of that womb environment that we first met. A space that feels containing, protective, and nourishing, that feeds us to be who we are. But the womb is not just a piece of meat. It's a part of a person, of a mother. And that person and that mother may welcome that child, may want that child and care for that child, or not. She may not welcome the child, she may not want the child, and she may not care for the child. So the womb is a place, but also is it embedded in it. There is a relationship to a person. And I do believe that these both parts are present in our sense of home. And I do believe that when we talk about home, attached to it, there is always an unconscious fantasy about how welcomed we felt, first by our primary caretakers, and then by the people that became important to us in our lives. May I ask Luca to go to the next, please? Okay. So I do believe that home is a complex object. It has objective parts, but also a very subjective and relational meaning. It has to be a place where we find protection and have access to basic care, a place where we can sleep, we can clean ourselves, we can feed ourselves, we can take care of ourselves. But also it is a place that evokes an environment of affection and communication. I believe one of the fundamental discoveries of psychology and development psychology and psychoanalysis was the importance of that second part, the affection and communication on human development. Already in the beginning of the 20th century, more than 100 years ago, already Sandor Ferenczi, a psychoanalyst, wrote about the unwanted child. And he wrote that a child who feels unwanted, not wanted, may let himself or herself die. And René Spitz, with his studies on hospitalism, confirmed this. When he studied those babies who were raised in hospitals and institutions, they had access to basic care, but they didn't have affection and communication. So, and those babies would not survive as much as babies who were raised in their families. So I do believe that when we talk about home, we talk about these. It is like we're talking about an object or a body with two arms, and both have to be present. I also enjoy the next definition down the slide that I believe comes from Winnicott, and he says that the first home are the arms and mind of someone. This is very simple, almost poetic, but again we have these two dimensions there. The arms, who represent the physical space, who contains and holds, but also the mind. One has to feel that that is holded in someone's mind, and one has to feel that we also have in our minds someone. So maybe we could move to the next slide, please. So what is to feel at home? I think in order to be able to feel at home, you have to have these two characteristics, two features. First, you have to find a space who feels safe, who feels comfortable and familiar to you, personal. It's your personal space. But at the same time, you have to feel that you are socially and emotionally connected with key figures, with special people to you. If you feel disconnected with people, if you feel that you are in a way an outsider, that you are out of the other's mind, there is nobody out there who remembers you, who thinks of you or cares for you. So even though you may have a house, maybe you will not have a home. So I guess I felt the need to speak about all these as a way of as an introduction to what is coming next and why is relevant to hear about trauma and to hear about attachment that Silvia will talk to us about. So I will finish for now here and ask Silvia to go on.
Yes, thank you, Elias. And I want to ask everyone to keep next to them a sheet of paper and a pencil, because we will ask you to make a test. We will not know anything about the output of your test, but it will be maybe interesting for you to let's say, play the game. So Luca, can I have the next slide, please? So trauma and attachment are the two, let's say, key words, key concepts that we are treating this afternoon with you. Trauma is a quite intuitive concept, but it's not as much easy to understand that homelessness and trauma, they are very, very much linked. And there are a lot of evidence on the correlations between the two matters, let's say. Next, Luca. So what is a trauma? It's not easy to say what is a trauma, but we may say where the trauma derives from. It derives from an experience, an event that evokes these emotions, very strong emotions of fear, of terror, of panic, and it inhibits the possibility. There is a voice which I hear, sorry, which is not mine. Maybe I am asking you to close the microphone if possible. Thank you. So this, do I just, okay. Luca, can we go back to the presentation? So I was saying that a trauma derives from an event which make you feel feelings of terror, of panic, of impotence, and it inhibits the possibility to use those strategies that are normally disposable whenever you feel something and you can cope with the environment. So what is the main peculiarity of the trauma is that you feel that it may be potentially fatal. The next one. Next one. Okay. So the impact of trauma affects different levels, which are physiological, cognitive, emotional, relational, and social. So on a physiological level, we saw that there is this hyperactivation of the arousal system, so to the stress responses. And what is very important, on a cognitive level, the trauma inhibits the possibility of having a mentalization. This means that the person is not able to think of him or her in that situation, cannot read anymore, cannot take the right distance to see himself in that moment, in that situation, and to cope. It's like if there is a collapse of the idea of a self in action in the world. So you get totally confused with the event that is happening. Of course, there are on an emotional level, difficulty in adjusting emotions due to the hyperactivation. And on a relational level, if the trauma is deriving from a relational condition, like if you are with an abuser, if you are having torture, you will not be able, or it will be very hard to establish for the future relationship of trust, of course, of intimacy, and maybe to regulate adhesion and coldness in the relationship. This will be, as an output, resistance to sociality, difficulty to be in a group, and we were very much surprised when we could, let's say, organize a group of persons living in the street, and Elias Barreto knows it very well, because people who has been exposed to a trauma, to a relational trauma, avoids and cuts all the relationships. So this is a tough moment and difficult moment to put all these persons together. So we will have social isolation, defensiveness, and aggressiveness as response to trauma. The next. This is quite important for all of us who are professionals working with persons who have highly traumatized, maybe had complex trauma, as Cocker-Searle would say, which means a series of trauma. For us working with them, we are at risk. So it's not only COVID, which is contagious, but there is a possibility to get infected, even by the participation, the empathetic participation with the stories that these persons are going to speak, to tell us. And so that we should, as I said before, talking about Smesse Europa, we should establish some tools, some way to avoid to be traumatized as a vicarious trauma. And the vicarious trauma may also exist and happen if you just are the witness of an event that evokes a possibility to die. Okay, so the next. These are the, let's say, protection that we may establish to protect us as professionals. So here are some bullet points: supervision and peer support, training and education, workload, a good distribution of workload, psychological support services when it's possible. It's not always easy. Boundaries and self-care. So teaching the persons that are working with people who has been traumatized and who has condition of necessity to keep the correct distance. So you should be able to move, because one of the risks is to become totally unaffected, you know, to don't feel anything when you talk and when you are exposed to others' pain, but not that much to go inside their pain and to suffer as they are suffering. So some reflective practice and supportive organizational culture that, let's say, it is what we are doing right now all together. Luca, the next. Here are some percentages of the experiences of trauma that are mainly represented in the population of homelessness, of homeless people. Look at the first date, which is the 47%, which is almost the 50%, experienced psychological neglect or abuse. I want to just say something about the neglect, because we all understand what is an abuse, and we think immediately at physical abuse or sexual abuse, a violent contact, but still, wherever there is a contact, the other person may build in his mind an image of himself. He may understand and feel that he does exist. So even if the contact is violent, I do have the impression that I am existing. Maybe I will build an image of me, which is a negative image. I'm a bad boy, I'm a bad girl, I'm not satisfactory for my parents, but still I exist. In the so-said neglect, the question is much serious and severe, because neglect means you do not exist. So try to imagine whenever you fight with somebody else and they don't speak to you for a while, which is the level of frustration that you feel, and how much this is, painful. Imagine a child who lives and grows in a relation which is neglecting. This means he cannot even create an image of himself. What was Elias saying before, that we need to have a relation, a contact in the home, and to feel that we are accepted. Neglect is the opposite. So it may look that it's a little bit less severe than abuse. It's not, actually. Then we go farther, 34%, and let's say 31% then had experience of premature loss of parents due to several causes, like separation, divorce, but even due to death, including murder or suicide. 27% refer of sexual abuse. And we must say that very often we meet high levels of parental substance abuser or domestic violence. I don't know, I think there are no questions about this because it's quite, I think, easy, but if you have any doubt, maybe we will talk later. So look at the next, please. So what Peter Cockersell, which is one of the main researchers about trauma and homelessness, suggests to the persons that are dealing with homeless, this concept is inside a wider area, which is called TIC, trauma-informed care. But these suggestions are very specific for those, like, let's say, Dr. Elias and me, and maybe a lot of you work as a psychotherapist, but it's not for those persons, because these are suggestions that may be used from everybody that has to deal with homeless persons, which means to have an extreme flexibility. So, for instance, for what concerns our setting, which is, sometimes very strict, to admit dogs, animals in the room of therapy, to accept people who are high because they drank, because they use drugs, and moreover, to be always welcoming to those that present several withdrawal, even if it's a long period since they don't come. We must care for them and go farther, considering our usual settings, or we must understand their difficulty and always accept and welcome their effort to be there and to enter in a relation. The next, please. Okay, I ask you to keep a sheet of paper next to you, and I would like to participate testing on you this thrower family circle, which is a test that Dr. Elias will explain better later. He used this with his sample of homeless persons. It has been chosen this test, which is a projective test. Projective means that you give some ambiguous stimulus to a person, and these help to, let's say, bring out some fantasies or some emotions that are usually hidden, even to the person that is representing them through this stimuli. So the instruction of this text were very easy. I hope I will be able to ask you how to do it, but it's written if you have any doubt. So please, on this piece of paper, just draw a big circle. Let's say as big, more or less, as I'll show you, like like this one. I think you can see, okay? And then represent in small circles yourself and the familiar figures and those more emotionally significant. So you can vary the size of the circles. They may be large or small. The distance between the circles may be close or separate. And then the distribution, they could be inside the big circle or outside the big circle. And this depending on the importance of the person represented. I ask you if it's clear or if you want to have, I don't see any one of you. So maybe Luca can tell me if somebody is waving his hands to have more clear instruction. I think that you can take 2 or 3 minutes to go and make your test. We will not ask you anything about. You will be able to have your personal feedback. You can maybe write an okay on the chat so that we will have a feedback of how many of you ended the test. Elias, do you want to say something in the meanwhile? No, you want to relax.
I think you explained it very well. So this is this is also something that people can do in a short time. It doesn't take much time.
No, in fact, I see just one message, but maybe let me see. This is Preben. No, Peter Perobles. Sorry for, maybe I'm not pronouncing the name in a correct way. By the way, we know that you are coming from very different nations. So we have a lot of nations participating here. Maybe Jacopo is able to tell us something. Anyhow, I think that I can go farther. And Luca, can I have the next, please, the next slide. So most of us, let's say, knew a lot about trauma and maybe more than what I said. And so now we pass to the other key concept of today, which is the attachment. The so-said attachment is a motivational system, which determines some of our behaviors. Like all the motivational system, they are drives that determine the way we behave. And attachment is related to research in childhood and development, and has to do to the links that are created with the figures of care between the child and the caregiver. Just a small note to tell you that when this John Bowlby, who was the British researcher and psychoanalyst who spoke about the theory of attachment as the first researcher, they were the 70s, and in Italy we had there his book, and the translation of the word caregiver was la mamma. I think that most of you understand what is la mamma. So the caregiver was just considered as the mother, not as a father. A caregiver may be even a babysitter or a grandfather, father. It depends on the person who has this special and creates this special, very special link with the newborn. It is true that it's mainly it happens with the mother or father. So the next one, please. So the most important assumption of the attachment theory is that a child to develop his emotional and relational success and capacity needs to have to detect as a person, at least one person with whom having a special relation of care. All the behavior that are determined by the attachment motivational system should call back the behavior of care by the adult side. This first output, let's say, of a result of this proximity-seeking behavior, because attachment is something that grants for the child the proximity of the caregiver. Let's say the first results of this special relationship goes to constitute the first brick of a construction that will, Bowlby has called this the internal operating model. And this internal operating model will last for the whole lifetime of a person. It may be changed, but it's not easy, because let's say it's like something which goes automatically in our mind. And this is the reason for which it's so much important. The next. Bowlby describes 4 different styles of attachment: the secure safe, the insecure avoiding, the insecure anxious ambivalent, and the insecure disorganized. Dr. Elias Barreto will speak a little bit deeper about this last, the disorganized, but let's see them. Look at the next, please. So as we said, the attachment is something which grants the proximity of an adult, a specific one, so a special relationship. The safe style may be developed by a caregiver that accepts and corresponds to the request of proximity, of closeness and affection. So we will have, as a result, a child that will not be worried, will not have concern for abandonment, just the normal one, and will have high comfort for proximity. The next. Here we have the insecure avoiding. The avoiding style means, or is an output, comes from a caregiver that is constantly denies proximity to the child. So the child, he has no comfort with proximity. He is not in confidence with this condition. So he will avoid, will be avoidant, and will have poor comfort with proximity, but little concern for abandonment, because abandonment, let's say, is the usual condition. So he's not concerned about. Then it will have difficult to involve. That is maybe the same difficult that the parent, the caregiver had, a difficult to get involved. He will have no need for care or attention and denial of needing others. What I want to say is that this no need for care and denial of needing others are already some defensive responses, because deeply each of us need care and attention and needs the others. The next, please. Here we are, this insecure, anxious, ambivalent. The anxiety or ambivalence is upon the specific answer that is organized by the child. So in this case, the caregiver, it may be close, concedes closeness, but in an inconsistently way. So here we will have high comfort for proximity, because the child had the experience to be in a warm place, but concern for abandonment. And this comes from the experience that the environment is not, you cannot foresee the environment. You cannot foresee which will be the response of the caregiver. Will he be there? Will he abandon you? And this may provoke a high level of anxiety, so that it is difficult to establish once more relationship of trust. This is like, do you remember, may happen in a person who is traumatized in a relationship. there will be a demanding behavior because you will insist for seeking proximity because you like that dimension, but it's not always available whenever you need it. And you need of constant reassurance. There are persons continuously asking you, do you love me? You sure you love me? And making tests on you, you know? Then it may become, the answer may become also an ambivalent attitude. We will see a video later, but you will see a person that is going toward and then refusing, that will accept but then attack, and or accept reluctantly, like, yes, I really don't need it, but you know, you never understand which is the affective position of this person. So it's ambivalent. The next, please, Luca. Luca, can I have the, thank you. The disorganized, we will see which is the percentage in our population, the population that you are looking at in this moment. But imagine that we are, as I said, attachment is a drive system, is a motivational system. And he exists next to other motivational system. One is the fight and flight system, which is the system which is activated by, for instance, an event that may evoke trauma, but not really, because in the trauma you can even activate the system. You just have a collapse of all the systems. But if you are threatened or in front of a danger, you will activate the fight and flight system. In this case, the caregiver is abusive. So what happens is that both and together the system of attachment and of fight or flight are activated. So the same person represents for you the threatened and the, let's say, safe base, the caregiver. Obviously, this double activity brings to a collapse and of any possibility to organize a behavior with a sense. And we will have, in this case, low comfort for proximity and high concern for abandonment. And all this disorganized attitude will follow to be sticky, refusing, demanding, attacker, unpredictable, and blah, blah, blah. Okay, please, the next. I would like to show you this talk about this strange situation, which is a test that this researcher, British researcher, Mary Ainsworth, imagined, elaborated, which is a test that stresses two opposite motivational systems: the attachment, which is the opposite, then the exploration system. So we are, a child is very strongly driven by these two different motivational systems. He needs to explore, to have competence on the environment that he lives in, to let's say, be in charge of his environment. But on the other hand, he's scared and he needs to feel protected. So this strange situation, I will read the points as in my slide to be a little bit faster. Let me see. Yes, we have time. So it's divided into 8 phases of 3 minutes each. I will show something, but not all the sequence because it's too long. In the first episode, a parent is brought into a room with their child and then left alone. So what is expected in the second episode is that the child will start to explore the room and play with the toys which are there. In the third episode, a stranger enters the room and he sits in silence, then he tries to talk with the caregiver and then tries to enter in contact with the child. In the fourth episode, the parent leaves the child alone with the stranger. In the fifth episode, the parent enters the room and the strangers come out. This is one important moment because it's a first reunion between the child and the caregiver. In the sixth episode, the parent leaves the child again alone. And then in the seventh episode, the stranger enters, tries to consolate the child. the last, which is the most important, is the episode in which the parent returns to the room. This test is, let's say, tested, to children that have 1 to 1.5 years of age. And this is because at that age, a child is not able to use other strategies. He's very, let's say, the attachment drive, the attachment drive is very much visible. You can recognize it easily, and it does not speak. And I just want to tell you one more thing, that today it is mainly used when there is the suspect that a parent is abusive. So it's mainly a matter of trial, you know. It's not used, let's say, just to check, because it's quite stressing for the child. You will see now a couple of videos. In the first one, you have some pieces of this strange situation, some episodes, but not all of them. And then in the second video, you will see 3 different ways of answering to the strange situation. One is the safe one, and then we will have the insecure avoiding and the insecure ambivalent. There is not a disorganized. I can just tell you that when you will see a disorganized attachment, maybe the child, once that the parent enter the room, make a freeze, you know, like he is unable to move, or it goes toward the stranger, or eventually toward the person who's just making the film of the situation. So the answers are totally disorganized, as we are saying. Okay, so Luca, can you please send the video? Oh, the audio is not good of the videos. I hope there is not advertisement, because they come from YouTube. But there are some, how to say, help me, Elias, the title, the underwritten, how to say? Subtitles, sorry. There are some subtitles. Please, Luca. It may be, okay.
Can the essential elements of home life be translated into a standard laboratory setting for controlled scientific study? After conducting extensive observations of parents and children at home, a student of Bowlby's, Mary Ainsworth, devised such a procedure called the strange situation, which places the child under some stress. It has become the most widely used standardized way to assess the quality of a child's attachment to their caregiver. Here the researchers are recording how 14-month-old Lisa responds in this attractive but unfamiliar setting. How will she react to a stranger? What will happen when her mother leaves the room? And when she returns? It's Lisa's behavior when her mother returns, what psychologists call the reunion, that they are particularly interested in.
Most importantly is to look for the type of balance that a child strikes between an attachment need and, on the other hand, to explore the play material.
Once Lisa has settled down to play, a stranger enters the room and sits in the chair reading a magazine.
Lisa, where's the bow? Where's the bow?
After a couple of minutes, the stranger attempts to interact with Lisa. Soon after, Lisbeth gets a cue to leave the room. The stranger tries to comfort Lisa, but in vain. Lisbeth comes back into the room and the camera records how Lisa reacts. Now the first part of the procedure is over, and Lisbeth settles Lisa down again. The stranger leaves them alone together. And soon after, Lisbeth goes too. Lisa is on her own. Her distress is plain to see. Once again, the efforts of the stranger to console Lisa are to no avail. But Lisbeth manages to calm her almost at once, and shortly afterwards the observation ends. Lisa showed outward signs of what's called secure attachment.
Levissima nasce pura e incontaminata in alta quota tra le Alpi italiane. Ecco perché ti rigenera con la forza della sua purezza. Altissima, purissima, levissima.
Okay, so Luca, can you send the second video in which we will see one answer of safe attachment, and then of avoiding, and then of ambivalent.
This experiment, which I watched through a two-way mirror, is designed to gauge how secure is the crucial relationship between mother and child.
Okay, this bunny is going to go here, and that bunny will be on top.
The value of the test has been established in studies that would watch a child, 1-year-old, and then follow it up and interview them about the relationships to their parents when they were 21 years old. Yeah. So we're quite confident in the long-term significance of this relationship.
Peter, that's Peter.
After several minutes play, the mother is signaled to leave the room.
Sweetie, I'll be back in 1 minute, okay? I'll get you back in 1 minute.
It's upsetting for you. Shame, I feel. But she'll survive. The key moment in the experiment is the child's reaction to her mother's return.
Hi. Hi. It's okay.
The important clue is whether the baby's able to become calmed down by the contact with the mother, get back to play. Sometimes it takes a couple of minutes. But you see, when the mother was out, she was only interested in the mother, no interest in the toys. Now she has a contact with the mother. She's beginning to show a little interest in the environment, and shortly she'll be right back with the toys where we started.
So you would call this a secure one?
Yes, yes.
She's certainly much happier.
Goes to the door following her. Now, we sent the mother right back in, but the point here is not to distress the baby. We're just trying to challenge it. The baby puts her hands to her face in a sad expression, puts her face down. When she picks her up, she keeps her head down, her arms out, and then she sits in the chair holding the baby. The baby's still sullen. He's low-keyed.
So you would call this insecure
Yes,
attachment?
insecure. He's avoidant. He's not engaging her, and it's not the reunion's not effective. And it's important to remember here that the thing that upset him was her absence. Her return should be the solution to his problem. Now this is another pattern that we see in babies who are not good at using their mother as a secure base at home. This baby is also insecure, But you'll see, we got a look at his play before the separation. The mother's left. And when she returns, she picks him up. He can't calm down. He's still upset. She offers a toy to amuse him or to comfort him or to distract him, and he slaps it away. She offers another. He slaps it away. He's angry. We call these babies resistant or ambivalent because they both want her back and yet can't use the contact. We think that the difficulty is that in the past, when he sought comfort, she's been inconsistent as to whether she's available and responsive or not.
Aprire la partita IVA può essere davvero davvero stressante.
Oh, c'è Fisco Zen.
I hope this is not the most interesting part of the webinar. The last one, the advertise. Okay, thank you, Luca. So can you please send the next one, the next slide? I don't know if there is any comment, but maybe I hope we can give you some time to discuss about this. And yes, we are going back to the slides. Just a few moments. I wonder if you had seen these videos before. No? Okay, I don't know. The next one, please, Luca. Okay, the next. Okay, so I give the floor to my colleague, Elias Barreto. Thank you, Elias.
Thank you, Silvia. Silvia explained quite well the attachment styles, and I just want to share that I had the opportunity to study a sample of homeless people years ago on attachment styles, and what I got was that there is no one who was on the quadrant of the figure. No one was on the secure attachment style, and all were insecure. Some they were anxious, ambivalent, some were avoidant, and the majority was on the quadrant of disorganized attachment. So in order to make more meaningful this figure, I should say that in normal population, you would find exactly the opposite of what I found here. You would find at least 50% on the secure attachment quadrant, and the rest, they would distribute mainly between anxious, ambivalent, or avoidant, and only a minority would be disorganized. So here, it's like we have exactly the opposite, or a negative image of what you could find in the normal population. Can I have the next, please? So, and in fact, the majority of what I found was that people showed a disorganized attachment style, which means that when they may have confusing or contradictory responses. If someone gets closer and shows an interest, they might react with fear. But if someone walks away, they might feel abandoned. And this kind of functioning really may be difficult when it comes for their ability to search and receive help. May I have the next slide, please? So I guess this concept, it's important to bear in mind, because many so-called problematic behaviors of homeless are associated with these with insecure attachment styles. And if we don't understand this, we tend to react, we tend to punish them instead of understanding what's behind these problematic behaviors. Next, please. Now, perhaps shall I go on, Sylvia, to explain?
As you prefer. As you prefer. I can do it.
Go ahead. You
okay,
saw.
Okay. So this is the family to you now thrower family circle, and this is the representation, let's say, of an ideal situation where hierarchies are very well designed in a certain way. You see, we have two big circles, mother or father, and vice versa, father or mother, who are next one to the other, who have more or less the same size. And we have three children, which are all next one to the other, same distance, and all the three next to one of the caregiver. And then we have a grandparent, which is in between. And we could say this is a good, let's say, balance in a family system. So Luca, there is another one. The next one, please, Luca. Thank you. Here we have the representation of the so-said emotionally divorced family, which may be also on a real side divorced, but here let's say it's emotionally divorced. So we see that there are different subsystems. Husband next by a daughter, a wife next by another daughter, and they are both far away. Husband and wife are in the opposite side of the circle. And then we have an older son with the family, which is a side apart, all inside the circle. But it seems like there are no, let's say, correct closeness. I think you can at this point even look at your thrower circle just to have an idea of your representation. So the next one is what Dr. Elias Barreto found out in his research. Look at the next one, please.
So when I presented this to a sample of homeless people, I found two main patterns. The first pattern, I would say that the emphasis is on distance. If you see, he put himself inside the circle, and he put all the elements of his family outside the circle at the border of the page. So as if he was searching for the maximum distance between himself and the people of his family. This was a man who was raised in the family with some violence, and at some point in his youth, he was expelled from home and forbidden to come back. And then he lived in a little village, and he went to Lisbon, and he spent the rest of his life in Lisbon, but as if he was hiding. He lived in the fear that someone from his village would find out that he was living on the streets. So I do think that this drawing, in a way, reflects his way of functioning. The next slide, please. Now here, I think this pattern, what I think it stands out, is that a pattern that I called indifferentiation. There is no difference between the representations. All of them are seem to have an equal value to him. Nobody stands out as more close or more important. And this person here, he was a man who, as a child, he would run away from home and spend long stays in the streets. And he used to survive by male prostitution or pedophile prostitution. And he kept repeating as an adult that proudly that as a child he was a pretty child, And lots of adults thought that he was very pretty. But when I see this image, I almost see a series of strangers that, with pretty much the same value to him. And I think this drawing reflects something of his way of thinking. May I go on, Luca, please? Next slide, please. Thank you. Now, when and just to let you know, we are on the end of the presentation, so stay with us, don't give up. We just want to stress that, when you study what went well on the intervention with people with social vulnerabilities, one of the key factors is continuity of care. This study here revealed that the best results were with those persons who had the same support worker through the whole period of support. So they didn't have different supporters changing all the time. They stick with the same, and that was a key factor for success. May I have the next one, please? Also, this type of analysis, what shows is that on the path to recovery, there is always someone who makes a difference, always someone who had a positive impact, and that changed the course of events. And that is not so surprising, because if you understand that bad relations and negative experience can have a traumatic impact, we should also be aware that positive relations and positive encounters can have a healing effect. And you can see that, for example, in children with teachers. Some children sometimes have really difficult backgrounds from the families, but if they find a good teacher, that teacher can have quite an important impact on his life or her life. Next, please. Next slide. Okay. So here I would like to call attention that services organize themselves according to different assumptions and principles. And I do believe that we could inscribe services within a spectrum or within a continuum, where on the one side you would find services that are more pragmatic and goal-oriented. Goal achievement comes first. And those services that we could say are relationship-oriented. Relationship comes first. There is an understanding that first you have to establish a good working alliance with the people before you start to ask things. Now, if you look at on your left, those services that see themselves as more goal-oriented, it tends to the dominant language is the language of bureaucracy. There are a lot of talk about filling forms, rules, procedures, and even the relationship with the user is turned into a contract, a signed contract with the rights and duties. Now, because everything is on paper and it becomes like the relationship becomes mediated by a bureaucratic machine, the caseload tends to be bigger. You will find in these services professionals that have hundreds of users, of clients to take care of. Also, the support tends to be more typified, more standard. I mean, users or clients are classified into categories, And once you are classified into a category, there are some kinds of support that are activated, but this support is exactly the same for everyone else in that category. Also, intervention tends to be short-term because there is a fear of dependency. There is a fear that people become too attached, too dependent on the services. So everything is given on a short-term basis. It's also more easy in this kind of service that the supporters or the providers keep changing, because there is an understanding that what matters is the information that is on the computer or on paper. So maybe they think that there is not so much harm if the user one day talks to a person, then the second time talks to a different one, or the third time talks to another one, because the information is there. The structure in this kind of services also tends to be more rigid. It's very difficult to change anything. The rules are the rules. And it's a structure that becomes more easily punitive, because if the user doesn't accomplish the goals that were established, that doesn't accomplish the tasks that you're supposed to do, then he's punished by the withdrawal of support. If he does them, he's rewarded with more support. But also problematic behavior is seen as an anomaly, something that should not happen. Persons should be good citizens and should behave well. If they are being difficult or problematic, that's because they have a bad character and they should be punished or pushed away. On the right side here, on the opposite side, on the services that have an awareness that relationship is a key factor, they also have an awareness that personal contact is very important. So the caseloads tend to be smaller because professionals need to have small caseloads in order to have time to be with their clients and to spend time with their clients. Also, support tends to be more tailored fashion, adapted to the individual needs. And there is an understanding of an importance of continuity of care. I mean, if you keep changing the provider or the support worker, you will not enable that for the relationship to develop. And the way of looking at dependency is also different, because there is the idea that dependency can be positive, because as Bobby shown, you can only risk to be autonomous if you have the trust that you can depend on someone or on something. If you are afraid that nobody will be there if you need, then you will be much more fearful to risk anything. So there is a positive dependency, and there is also an understanding that we are dealing with complex cases, that the problems will not go away easily or quickly. So professionals are more ready to work with people for some time, maybe for a long time, maybe forever. And that is not a problem, because as long as you are working together, you will accomplish things. If the relation breaks, then you lose him. Also, structure and consistency and flexibility of structure are not opposites. I mean, structure is more flexible, will not be blind applying the rules. And also, the way of looking to problematic behavior is also different, because there is an understanding. If someone shows bad behavior, maybe it's just not because he's a bad person. Maybe that has something to do with the way we are working. Maybe he has some needs that we are not understanding, and we are not being able to meet these needs. So maybe he has work to do, but maybe we have work to do too. And I think in these opposite sides, I think services sometimes they oscillate between one side and the other, but of course, I believe when you work with homeless people, the right side is much more adequate. May I have the next slide, please? Now, for some years now, in England, in the UK, there is this concept of PI, psychological informed environments, and we could add TIC, trauma informed care, but according to Cockersall, in order to create a psychological informed environment, you should follow certain principles. The first principle is that your service and your staff should be provided with a psychological framework within which to interpret behaviors, interactions, and feelings that arise from those interactions. And about this, I would like to make a personal observation. Within my opportunities with SMES to visit different countries, one thing that really surprised me was that whereas in Portugal, it's very common to see psychologists working with homeless, in other countries, I found out that that is not the case. In other countries, and richer countries than Portugal, seem to look at psychologists as less pragmatic, more expensive. So when the time comes to hire, they prefer other professionals. And that's really strange for me because, well, just the same as I don't see how a service can do social work without social workers or can do psychiatric intervention without psychiatrists. I don't see how a service can have a psychological approach without psychologists. So that's a thought that I would like to hear about it from you. The other principle is that we should, architecture matters. The way we design our services, our spaces matters. And there are services that when you get in, it seems like there is a war between clients and professionals. There are a lots of walls, a lots of glasses, a lots of lines dividing the space between professionals and users. And many times these places are ugly and uncomfortable, as if not inviting the people to stay. On the other hand, if you create services that are more open, with beautiful colors, with open spaces, with care, these kind of spaces promote a different relationship with your users. These spaces are much more inviting and invite people to come closer and stay with the professionals. So we should really think what our services are communicating with the way we design them. Also, another principle is that the importance of staff to have training and support opportunities. And about this, I think it's important to say that at least is my experience, many times the staff training goes to the most, the higher education professionals. But the ones who have the most humble tasks sometimes are left out. The ones who do the cleaning, who do the cooking, who do the reception, the security. However, these kind of staff are the ones who spend the most time with the users. So it's really important to include them in the training because the way they talk to the users, the way they deal with the users is quite impactful on the users and how they perceive the services. Also, about the reflective practice. It is my experience that in many services that work with homeless and other social populations, social vulnerable populations, there is always a sense of urgency and emergency. And the professionals are always in a hurry trying to solve some big problem. And often there is not time to stop and think. And I do believe really that it's very, very important to find that time, the time to stop and think together and to reflect. And this can be done with supervision, intervision, team meetings, all sorts of forms. It's very important that teams find the time to stop and think on what they're doing. Otherwise, they will just work reactively, automatically, and soon be burnout. The fourth principle, managing relationships. I do believe that a critical part of our work is managing relationships. It's not just providing support, providing resources, it's managing relationships. And those moments that are the most difficult, the moments where a client may be frustrating, disappointing, challenging, attacking. Those are the moments. Those moments are really important, the way we deal with them. So we should try to find ways to deal with those moments the best we can, not just push people away, because those moments help to shape and structure our relation with the people. Also, the principle of client involvement. It's very easy to say that we are, inclusive and let our clients to decide, but it's easier to say, but not so easy to do, because in practice, many people, many professionals are really convinced that they know what's better for their clients. They know what's best, and clients should just do what they think they should do. And when you have that frame of mind, it's very easy in subtle ways and not so subtle ways to become imposing and controlling and pushy with your client. The sixth principle is about outcome evaluation. Of course, this is a very important principle. Always evaluate what you're doing. But I would like to add that professionals, especially frontline professionals, cannot do everything. I mean, you can be very good working with people, but maybe you don't have the skills to do research and to do studies. So organizations really should invest in people who have those skills to do a good outcome evaluation. And finally, the seventh principle is access to therapy. Now, we've all been very much influenced by the image of the pyramid of needs of Maslow, Abraham Maslow, the pyramid of needs. We established this idea of pyramid where the basic needs are down there, and then the more psychological needs are up there. Now, this image gives us an idea, especially when you work with homeless, it gives the idea, because homeless have so many basic needs that we have to work on. There is this idea that psychological therapies are a luxury. They're up there. Now, what I find interesting with Cockersall is that he created a service which provided psychotherapy for homeless. And Sylvia talked about a little bit about how the flexibility that these services had. But he showed that you can offer psychotherapy to homeless and have very good results. Also, the experience that we have in Lisbon, in the hospital, we have an ongoing group therapy for where a lot of homeless have attended. Our experience has the same. If we offer psychotherapeutic opportunities, these people can really benefit from it. So it's something to consider seriously and not just think that it's a luxury, that when they have everything solved, then they can think about it. And I guess that's all that I wanted to say, Sylvia, and I will ask you to finish now the presentation. Thank you.
You're welcome. Luca, can I just have the last and then the very last and very last to go to the conclusion. But I want to be very fast and say this oscillation, Elias said this, coming and going, attacking and asking. We should think about an homeless person not just as a passive one, poor one, just left on the street, but as a person that is trying. He makes some effort, but it's very hard to build a process for him to put together all these pieces, all these pieces that his mind is not more able to keep together. So maybe the next one, Luca, I want to underline that there is not a service that can solve the problem totally, even if it's a very, very good service, as a lot of services are. The problem is that we have to put a lot of pieces together. Luca, the next, please. So what is important, as we studied with Luigi Leonori and with our colleagues, sorry, in this moment I don't remember the name. We have our professor from the University of Leuven, and we had this project, European project, as Messe Europa was a leader in this project, which is person first. And we must put the person at the center of our project. We should have an asset of collaboration, which is something different than cooperation. It means that we all the services try to stay together and to have the same target, the same person to care for. We cannot just, complete by ourselves all the process of caring about homeless, but we can put all our expertise together and cooperate and collaborate, especially. So I want to thank Luca, to all the persons that are hidden and that we meet and don't meet. Luca. The last in which we don't have the last, but we say that it's a joy to hide for a homeless person, but it's a disaster not to be found. So we all need closeness to other persons, even if we hide. I thank you for your being here. I just want to say a few words before giving you the floor. And this is if Luca can send our email. We want to ask you to give us a comment as soon as the meeting will end. You will receive by mail an evaluation form. But I want to give you our email address. If you want to ask for anything that you think you may need in your service, as I said, we are professionals from different countries, and I'm sure that we may correspond to your request or try our best to be there. And once more, we would like you to join us as well and to enlarge our community. Thank you so much. So if any one of you has any question, we are here. And Luca, you can maybe give just... Yes, who is?
May I have a comment? Or yes?
Sure.
Yes, sure.
Yeah, okay, because I thought someone else was going to speak. Okay, so for me, your webinar was about relationships, that the importance of relationships, that the housing and the professionalism is not in the first place important. Don't misunderstand me. I'm not against good housing and good professionalism, but what counts most, and I have seen it in these videos with mothers and children, with mothers, these nice mothers, they were not certified psychologists, and so as relationships is the most important factor in bringing hope and to the people we care about, we should put all the stress on the relationships. I may sound controversial, but for example, the shelter where you have many people inside and which are not well seen nowadays. On the other hand, it's a space for very many relationships, more relationships and perhaps more useful relationships than in other situations. Once again, I'm not against housing first. I'm not against good housing, but if we prioritize what is most important for the people we care about, and if it's relationships, then it's good. Then we can follow this track. Then we should follow this track and not be somehow limited by trends, ideologies that this is the best way now. Everybody thinks this is the best way, and it should be the way we should proceed in our professional life. Yes, and okay, flexibility, relationships. I have heard it all in your presentation, and it was good to hear.
Well, let's gather some more comments or questions, and we have some time for some reactions.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Preben.
It's Preben, but I don't know what is wrong with my camera, so I can't put the hand in the air. I can shortly present myself. I'm from Denmark, working in Copenhagen. I'm a very old psychiatrist, stopped working, but have been working all life with this also as a part of the theoretical part. And I will not open a big discussion, but you are psychologists, both of you. And I agree so much. I find it very interesting what we're telling. But some research point also out that there could be or must be a genetical part of the development of homelessness or exclusion or strange behavior and such thing. Especially the epigenetic is discussed very much. And I'm not going to discuss how much of those two, but when you are talking about the psychological part of the treatment or help, does you think that the genetic part are disturbing you or giving you not the opportunity not to involve it? You understand what I'm asking for?
What part? I didn't understand.
I think
exactly.
I ask
the genetic part. Yes, Preben. I think I've got. So Elias, he was saying, which is the weight of the genetic part compared to let's say hardware compared to software in a way. Is it correct, Preben?
Yes, sure.
Okay. So I can just give you my answer, which is partial, but even if a lot of genetic research has been conducted, especially on mental illness, let's say that we still don't have any totally acceptable theory. What we know, on the other hand, is that, for instance, the attachment styles may be inherited. So that if you are, as I was saying about the avoiding attachment style, if you learned, let's say, that kind of asset in your mindset, your internal operating model is the one of avoiding. So not for looking for proximity, you deny to have need for others, and so on. This is maybe what you will teach, even in an unconscious way. It will be your way of behaving. So the mother who's avoiding, the caregiver, the caregiver who's avoiding will maybe build an avoiding attachment style in the child. So I don't even think about something genetic, as you are saying. I think those are all models that we must keep in our mind, of course, but it's very important which is your deep belief on something. So it's like if you are giving hope and approaching with a lot of availability. I don't know if it's clear what I'm saying, but I couldn't say that I never met something genetic that impeded my work. I don't know if.
Okay, thank you. It's okay.
I would suggest to hear more people, and then in the end, perhaps we could have a comment, because I'm sure other people may have other reactions too.
Reaction of Ides. Ides, I forgot his name. Ides was the professor that was with us in our Person First project. And he's asking, can you give an idea of the main causes of trauma behind homelessness?
Yes, yeah, I'm not a psychologist, but I have an idea that trauma is some incident that is occurring in the course of your life cycle, and that causes some say behavior and some relationship and some disorder in your relationship with other people. So yeah, I wonder if you have some idea of what types of trauma occur most often in that trigger say trajectories of homelessness in your experience.
Well, sometimes the concept of trauma leads people to think that we are searching for one event, and it's rarely like that. And that's why, for example, Peter Cockersall talked about compound trauma, and by that he meant that trauma. By the way, trauma is the root of the word. It's a Greek word who means wound. You know, like you hurt yourself and you open the skin. Okay, that's trauma means wound, and it means that psychologically sometimes a wound may open. There is something happens that you cannot deal with it, and it's quite impactful. But what Peter Cockersall talked about is with homeless, we are not talking about one trauma that explains it all. No, we're talking about a series of quite impactful events that one thing, when something bad happens, the probably it's more probable that another bad thing happens next and next, and before you find your equilibrium, there is something bad happening again. So there is research, we didn't show it here today, but there is research that shows when you compare life events of homeless people and you compare them with normal population, and you in the homeless population, the number and the extent of adverse life events is much bigger, and those bad life events can happen both in infancy and in as teenagers, but also as an adult. An adult homeless people is exposed to a series of bad experiences that can be traumatic. So there is not one trauma, there is a series of traumas, but the research shows that in homeless, you will find a prevalence of bad life events much higher than in normal population.
Very shortly, because I see there is a question. We have major trauma, especially in our migrants. There you may find torture, for instance. So the Libyan station, you know. So in that case, yes, we can, or by killing in their countries, you know, murdering, and so on. Okay.
I see
Peter.
Yes.
Can I?
Thank you very much.
I would.
Yes, Peter.
Can you hear me all right?
Yes, see you and hear you.
Thank you for the great presentation. I'd like to add, I'm a trainer in Flanders, Belgium, and one thing I train people who are working with people who are experiencing homelessness, and the division between having a house and the relational part, I think we have to be very careful about it. When I talk to people who are experiencing homelessness, a house is a very, very important tool to create and manage and try to have these relationships, to let people in, but also to keep people out of your environment, for instance, when you want to sleep. So this is an important thing I want to add. And it's not only my experience, but I just looked up Megan Sandel's research on the timing and duration of pre- and postnatal homelessness of mothers correlated to the health of their children from throughout their youth. So it is long-term research, and they did follow-ups until the children were 20 years and older. So they followed up on mental health and other health issues, and they saw a very big correlation on this part, on being the mother being homeless even before birth or in the period of birth. So I think we have to see the connection between housing and relationship. And I also liked the part about how we cut up too much the care when we work with homeless people. We're like always referring them to other parts and other parts and other parts, like chain work, which is not the way to do it, I guess. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Possible?
Yes, I would just to make a small comment on what Peter said about to bring them in one parts and then another parts and then another parts. That one of the recommendation in this case, when you are getting in touch with the person, the, let's say, best succeed where happened when the same worker that these persons met at the very first request of help was the worker that was continuously helping them. So yes, I totally agree with your suggestion and reflection.
I would also like to add that I completely agree that we should not oppose relationship with housing, nor oppose relationship with, you know, we are not disputing anything. We're just talking about a dimension that we should, I think we all agree that is important. And housing, of course, it's another dimension. And also here, yes, me and about the comment of Preben, Sylvia and I are both psychologists, so we wanted to talk about this specific topic, but this is not to be against other knowledges, against psychiatric knowledge, against social science knowledge. This is not oppose anything. It's just to share something that we feel it's important. But of course, there are much more that we could talk about, but we just cannot talk about everything.
It's possible to shorten work?
Please, Luigi, even because we are at the end, so I think we should greet our...
No, it was against for the wounds. What is different? Each people can receive the same wounds, but not have the same reaction. This one I think is very important. But I would also underline other two words. You're speaking about attachment and abandonment. Today, in what happened today with many times with younger people, we see this word. There is one kind of attachment, but this attachment means transforming in a possession. And what happened when there is abandonment? So these three words, what you use, I think is very important when we have to touch about the trauma, because it's a part of this one. Anyway, but I would also thanks to each people participating in this webinar, and also best for the future preparing other kind in this other months. Thank you very much for all the participants.
Yes, I once more ask, please, all of you to consider our evaluation form. No, help me. I'm done. Thank you. This is our email address, and you will receive the evaluation form in your email. So we ask you, please, to be so kind to answer to it. It will be very fast, but very helpful for us. Thank you so much to all of you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your participation and patience too. Thank you.
Yeah.